Welcome, everyone. It's great to have you with us. I'm really excited about our interviewee, I should say, today. And it's a gorgeous day on campus. It's about 67 degrees. It's a little bit cloudier than yesterday, which was in the kind of lower 60s. I'm coming to you from the Golden Dome, the main building, and I just want to, confirm for you that this building, rebuilt in 1879, does not transition real well. So the temperature in my office right now is 86 degrees, and if I doze off at all during the interview, you'll understand why. Actually, I'm thrilled to be interviewing this student who will do more than keep me and all of you awake. A quick update, if I could, on how the COVID dynamic is going on campus. If we look over the last couple of weeks and we take a snapshot of the last 3 Mondays, 2 weeks ago we had 38 positive cases. A week ago, Monday, we had 24. And then just 2 days ago, we had 19. When we came to you last week, we said that the 7-day positivity rate was at 1.1%. Well, it's dropped to 0.8%. So we are trending in the right direction. Everybody is far from declaring victory at this point. We're remaining vigilant, especially with St. Patrick's Day on the horizon. We've had a lot of conversations with students about trying to be very careful and not celebrate too broadly and to get themselves in any kind of trouble or to create a spreader event over this holiday. And students have been just really wonderful in doing their very best to comply with these rigid accommodations under this very difficult pandemic. So for now, all is trending in the right direction on campus. Now, I am really excited to interview today and to have a wonderful conversation with this terrific young man. His name is Allan Njomo, and he is a junior. He resides in Stanford Hall, and he's got a pretty incredible story. Just this past week, he was elected the student body president, and he will take over officially as the president of our student body on April 8th. So he's in a few weeks before he assumes officially office, but he's already working really hard in this new capacity. And I won't say anything more about him at this point because we'll let him, share with you in his own terms. So please join me in welcoming Allan Njomo. Thanks so much, Allan, for being with us. And start us off. Where were you born?
Yeah,
Tell us a little bit about growing up, and you have an interesting background.
yeah, for sure. So first of all, thank you so much for having me on. I am so honored to be on one of these live chats. I always get the emails, so this means a lot. But yeah, so my name is Allan Njomo. I was born in Kenya, Nairobi, Kenya, and 2 months after 2 months after I was born, my mom passed away. And so growing up in Kenya was just me, my dad, and an older brother who was 4 years older, and we lived with my grandma and my grandpa. And then, during the week, my dad would go over to the city to work and then come on the weekends to either pick us up or, bring us into the city or just stay with us for the weekend. But that's kind of like the environment I grew up in until somehow I ended up in the United States in 2009. And super glad for that. As you can tell from the big Texas flag behind me, I ended up living in Texas with my dad, my brother, and I. And yeah, and so that's kind of like the beginning of kind of like that journey to the United States.
So when you first came to the States, how was your English? What languages did you speak
Yeah,
in Africa, and how did you go on adapting?
right. So grew up speaking Swahili. Also spoke and understood Kikuyu, and came to America not knowing a lick of English. My dad was a lucky one. My father knew English. My brother and I didn't know English, and so that was kind of like during the time, stepping into this new land, uh, to be frank, seeing people who didn't look like me was very intimidating at first, but at the same time, people really kind of, walked us along, helped us learn English, and really, really taught us, what money is here in America and, the difference between a nickel and a dime. So during that time is where we adjusted kind of like that first year in the US from 2009 to kind of 2010.
So you're what, about 10 years old then when you came over to 9, 10 years old when you
Yeah.
came to the States, and you know, first before we talk about the arrival to the States, can you say a little bit in the tribal language Kikuyu, and then say a few words as well in Swahili?
Yeah, yeah. Kwan Atia, which is how are you? How are things? And then in Swahili, habari yako unaendeleaje, which is, how are you? How are you doing? And then in English, how are you doing?
Your English is very good. Just by the way, I can't really verify how good you are in the other two languages, but I'm sure it's equally impeccable. So you arrive in the States, Alan, and it's not clear sailing, right? The immigrant process, you're working on a visa, and you're trying to kind of make it as a family and adjust. Can you tell us a little bit about those early years here
Yeah,
in the States?
for sure. They were very hard, to say the least. About 4 or 5 months in, we're out here on our own. My dad finally kind of gets a job, but that ends up not working out, and he's let go, laid off. And beginning in January of 2010, we end up being homeless and living at a shelter, and that's kind of where we live for the next 8 months. And I know, like personally, during that time, I had a hard time. We've just traveled so far, and it felt like everything that we'd done was flying up into our faces. But looking now back on that time in 2010, the Arlington Life Shelter where we were staying at, I owe a lot to them. That's where I learned literally everything. There's no way my English is this good right now. There's no way I'm in Notre Dame right now. Without the Arlington Life Shelter. They took time with me and my brother in order to make us feel at home on one hand, but even on the other hand, help us adjust to what life in the United States was. But yeah, so we were in the shelter for 8 months, and then finally found housing. My dad found a job, and from there we walked towards this path of independence in America. And yeah, it's a super incredible thing that happened, and no way it happens without divine intervention. God really being there for us and our family, walking us through that entire journey. But I think it's also a testament to my father. My dad, did such a good job playing the role of like, a stern father, but even like he had to be our mother sometime. And, being nurturing, caring, and working so hard to ensure that we would have a livelihood. So those two things right there is what I owe kind of the position that I'm in here today. To those two, God, my heavenly Father, right, and also my earthly dad, for sure.
Fantastic. And so there had to be moments in there, Alan, where you were just thinking early on, like, God, maybe it would be better if we just returned to Kenya. And yet, as you look back, it sounds like you built a lot of resilience. And in the time that we're going through right now with COVID and all the disruption and everything else, I would guess that you've got this grit or this strength or this hopefulness about you that maybe came from that rather untraditional and difficult upbringing. Would that be fair?
Yeah, for sure. There's something about you know getting through something. It allows you to really look back upon, consider what factors played a role in you emerging unscathed during that time. Um, and I think about, the time that we're in right now. There's a lot of hardship, beyond, what students face here on campus. There's a lot of hardship going around, and I think it's important to really be there for those people during those moments on one hand, but even more so, remembering that even through the hardship that you may be going through, God is with you, and even more so, uh, keep moving forward as much as you can, rely on the people around you, and keep moving forward.
Mhm. That's great. That's great counsel, I think, for all of us, especially in these times. So you get into high school and
Yeah.
you're just getting more comfortable with the English language. And how did you set your goal? Were you even thinking about college? Do you know about colleges? Tell us a little bit about that high school experience.
Yeah, one thing that my father said is that you have to go to college. So I knew that college was not something that I wasn't going to do. I knew I was going to go to college. I didn't know where and didn't know how. And so I always set my sights far ahead. And I used to, for a long time, say, I'm going to Stanford. I want to go to Stanford. And deep down, I knew that I didn't really have a connection to that school. I knew nothing about it. And it was just a school that I saw had nice colors, and I said, that's kind of where I want to set my sights. And it's just through that I ended up really working hard throughout high school, um, based on the work ethic that my father instilled in me, but even more so just to see if I could reach that goal. And then finally, college time comes, and I was a mess. I didn't know where to start, and one of the things that I did wrong is apparently you're supposed to research schools before you apply. Uh, I didn't do that. I applied to a total of 19 schools, hoping that one of them would let me in. And the fun story is, so I applied through QuestBridge, which allows you to rank 12 schools, which they send your application to these schools. And Notre Dame was on the top of that list. And the reason that Notre Dame was on top of that list was not because Notre Dame was my dream school or something that I'd been really looking forward to entering, but rather because I Googled the top 20 schools in the United States. I saw Notre Dame on that list. I clicked on it and I really liked the website. The website was really nicely put together, right? And I decided if they can do this with a website, imagine what they can do with the students. And I sent my application over through QuestBridge. And, when I got that news, I believe December 21st, I was so elated. I was so grateful and happy. And that's when the journey began, looking into where Notre Dame was, uh, finding out it's in South Bend, Indiana, finding out the weather, and finally visiting. And so that's kind of where the journey started towards Notre Dame.
So I guess one of the big lessons here is never underestimate the importance of a good website,
Sure.
and I think especially in these times, I mean, last year and again this year, students, especially those who are less mobile and have fewer means, they've not been able to travel to campus. So they've been able to look at a number of websites and try to communicate the story of the university electronically to them. So that's a powerful story. But um, so you get your admittance. It's got to be a big day, but you must be wondering, can I afford this school? Way up north. And so,
Mm-hmm.
what was a bigger day? The day that you were accepted, or the day that you got the news of your financial aid package?
It's got to be close, right? So the day I was accepted, I remember yelling, jumping, my dad being like, wait, what's going on, right? And then the day that I got my financial aid package, I was alone in my room, and no one knows this, but I ran around my my house to just enjoy because it was finally a reality. I had visited at that point. I already knew kind of what was around in Notre Dame. And so to finally get that confirmation that this is possible, I can actually come here. That was something that definitely brought me a lot of joy, and it made this moment possible. I wouldn't be here in front of you, Lou, without financial aid.
Yeah, that's a great story. So the financial aid package was decisive and making it possible for you to be here and your family. So tell us a little bit about the last 2.5 years plus. Now
Yeah.
that you've been a student at Notre Dame, what have you experienced? We know that you're studying business analytics, but tell us a little bit about some of your extracurricular engagements and what's been really meaningful. What have you found here in this Notre Dame family?
For sure. So the biggest thing I found at Notre Dame was this community at Stafford Hall. I've been blessed to be a part of it, to know that every day that when I walk out the door, I'm walking out the door, I see one of my brothers, the fellow Griffin, anytime that I walk down the hall, I hear someone say hi or yo or what's up. Makes a big difference in your day. So
So,
that's one of the
so
biggest
you, in a
communities
sense,
that I've
you
had.
did make it to Stanford,
I did get into
uh,
Stanford.
just
Yes,
to
sir.
Stanford Hall. And just tell us a little bit about why Stanford? How did that work out, Stanford, for you?
Stanford Hall or Stanford University?
No, no, Stanford Hall. Stanford
Stanford
Hall. Where
Hall.
Stanford University is way behind us now.
It
Yeah.
worked out. It worked out perfectly. I had a connection with the rector. We connected, and we he was always there for me whenever I had any questions. For the longest time, one thing about Texans is that at a young age, we're taught to say sir and ma'am. And for the longest time, whenever I would text him, I'd be like, yes, sir. And he kept saying, hey, stop saying sir. Like, just call me J Mac by his nickname. And he was one of the biggest reasons that, I really fell in love with this community. The way he ran things here at the hall, the way he cared for students, to the point of, cooking for them, inviting them to meals. And then like he invited us all the time to just his errands. I'm going to pick up pizza. You want to come with me? Little things like that really make a difference and make you feel at home. So that community that I've really bought into it here at Stanford Hall. My sophomore year, I ended up serving as Stanford Hall senator just because I knew I wanted to serve my community. From there, I ended up serving as Stanford Hall president just because I continued to fall in love with this community and I knew that I could, bring out the best in it through my service alongside my vice president, Michael Babikian. And yeah, and so just this idea of being in service to the community that has already done so much for me always resonated with me. And then from there, alongside, what I'm majoring in business analytics, that's, based on this idea that, beyond here at Notre Dame, I want to, make a difference in the world, particularly in the space of healthcare. And there's a lot you can do, with a marriage between data and healthcare policy. And so looking forward into doing that and, finding a community of people who are also interested in that is always really compelling on one hand, but on the other hand, it encourages you to move forward. And then I've also found a community of other first generation low income students here at Notre Dame through the Fighting Irish Scholars, which is a scholarship initiative within the Office of Student Enrichment that looks to, empower students like me to feel like they are a part of this community. And I remember that, through Office of Student Enrichment that I was able to get my football tickets, right? And then now through this community that they have, I can finally feel proud, to be that first generation low income student in the class. Like I can be proud of that instead of, there's this stigma where, oh, if you are coming from a poor background, you should be ashamed of that. But, Lou, I'm not ashamed because of the Fighting Irish Scholars.
Fantastic. Well, not only should you not be ashamed, but now you've broken the mold as a first generation low income student becoming the student body president. I think there's going to be a lot of others who are going to be looking up at you and saying, if he can do this, I can do that. And your example, I think, is going to ring loud and clear. But when I first came to know you was, well, we're coworkers. You've been working as an intern in a university relations department. So we met along the way. But where you really stood out was through Notre Dame Day. You were the president of Stanford Hall, and you went out with some really creative and with that charismatic personality of yours, rallied the Stanford Hall alumni to support the cause. And I think you guys came out first. You beat all the other 29 residence hall communities on campus and raised like $27,000 for the hall. Can you tell us a little bit about how you did that and how are you able
Yeah.
to spend the money?
First thing is like I didn't do it. It was this community coming together in such a special way. The team that we had here, we had folks over at University Relations, Connor Montijo, really pushing us forward. My vice president, Michael Babikian, was also a big part of that. And we started early. We planned looking forward to kind of what Indie Day would look like within a pandemic.
Yeah.
And so through creative planning, we came up with these incentives. So one of the first incentives was, hey, if you get 700 donors, you can pie us in the face. The issue is that we said if you get 700 donors, and we listed all the different things that they can do. It was, pie us in the face. I had to walk around the quad looking for someone named Kate and ask them if they can marry me. So I had a sign saying, "Will you marry me, Kate?" And they really loved that idea, and so for some reason that worked. Additionally, they shaved my head. So my hair is growing back now, but once upon a time I was walking around with a shaved head. And then the final one, the ones that everyone loves, was this idea that we were going to get a tattoo that signified Stanford Hall. So one big thing we talk about here in Stanford Hall is big Stanford love. And it's just this idea that once you walk into Stanford Hall, you feel this love and community. And once you walk out, you give that to others. And so those three letters are to be tatted. And so they really bought into that idea. And, somehow that community came together. So alumni loved it and they spread the word. Parents were such a big part of this. We connected with the parent Facebook and they loved it and they pushed forward, reached out to people. And then it was the students, up to the last 3 to 4 hours, we all crowded in the basement. We had about 20 to 30 residents coming in and out throughout the process. And we were just calling people, say, "Hey, I'm doing a fundraiser for my dorm. This is what we need in our residence hall. This is how you can make this possible with a gift as small as $5. And we kept that going. And then finally, whenever the bell rings, I believe it's for 12 a.m., somehow we emerged victorious.
That's fantastic. So, do you have a tattoo?
Look, I'm not saying that we're pushing it off or canceling it, but the Notre Dame COVID guidelines have been very advantageous to this cause of pushing that thing off.
Okay, good. I'm glad. I'm actually elated that you don't have a tattoo. But did you meet your Kate?
I did meet my Kate. I haven't spoken to her since that day, but I met her and she met me. And maybe one day we'll run into each other.
Was she must have been flummoxed by seeing you with a sign and approaching her?
I had a sign, I had flowers, and I had to get on a knee and ask her to marry me. And, she said yes, I'll give her that. So maybe there's something there down the line.
This is just like The Bachelor or The Bachelorette. It never works out at the end, but it makes for good. Somebody videotaped it, right? I imagine.
Oh, there's videos out there. I was very embarrassed, I'll be honest.
I can only imagine how Kate felt. With that. That's terrific. So, what are some ways in which you are going to be allocating the money, and that will have an impact on the Stanford community and
Yeah.
beyond?
So the biggest thing is, with COVID, we were really pushed into outdoors, right? But
Yeah.
it's cold. And so we wanted to build a patio where we could have community outside and have heating so that it's not too cold to be outside. So that's one thing that we're working on. We're working on restoring the furniture in our basement that is it's gotten really old. And so making sure that we have some new couches, also some new gaming tables that we could use. Because really, at the end of the day, what it was about is it's about community, and you can build so much community with having a hockey table. Air hockey table.
Yeah.
And then the last thing is kitchen utensils. Our kitchen utensils have gotten kind of old, and so we wanted to replace those with some new updated utensils, so that there's something about cooking your own meal, and so kind of promoting that idea that, hey, you can cook your own meal, and here's some upgraded utensils that could really, really help you in that.
And are you a cook yourself? Do you use those?
I do cook. I am the family cook whenever I'm back home. So it's one of my things that I'm so happy I've learned, because I got to college and turns out that not everyone knows this, and so I'm always happy to teach people too. So Lou, if you need any lessons.
Oh, I need them desperately. My wife would sign me up in a heartbeat. But are you able to, for your friends, cook any Kenyan, dishes for them down in the
Yeah.
basement of Stanford?
We've been talking about it for the longest time. The trouble is getting the ingredients, and so going into South Bend to find them, we haven't been able to find them. But it is certainly on our to-do list. With other of my friends, I've been able to have meals from Nigeria, Ghana, so jollof rice, So there is that essence of community here at Notre Dame where other people can cook for others. And I believe like one of the biggest events that we had last semester or maybe last year was this Ghana jollof rice versus Nigerian jollof rice. I'm not going to say which side I chose because it's a much controversial decision, but it was good food. So I was glad to be a part of it.
Fantastic. So this young man who comes over as an immigrant, struggles, you find yourself homeless as a family, you overcome all kinds of obstacles. You're now the president of the student body at the University of Notre Dame. Um, eh, why? Why did you run for office, and what do you hope to do with your tenure as president?
Sure. So I never would have called it, never even saw myself in this position. I was until October that I was approached with this idea of, hey, have you ever considered running for a student body president? And Maddie, my running mate, my VP, was very helpful and, kind of pushing me to make this decision even because, he saw that um, I had this desire to serve students. And at first, kind of like my desire to serve students, at least for my senior year, looks like living in Stafford Hall, being an RA. So that's kind of what I'd set my eyes on. And then, so at first, I even shirked the idea of running for student body president because I was like, I want to be an RA within this community.
Mm-hmm.
But really, what it came down to is something that my dad taught me, which is to always be in service of others. For the longest time, in Kenya, one thing that I remember is, whenever a neighbor didn't have sugar or didn't have rice, they would just come knock on the door and say, hey, I don't have any rice, I don't have any sugar. You just give them what we had, right? And so this idea of just giving and being in service of others is something that's been taught to me from a young age. And even more so, my dad really pushes that, if you can help someone, help them. And because of that lesson, I felt like I had to take the opportunity that was given, to be in service of students. And that's really what pushed it. And I call a couple mentors. Mike Brown, you know him over at University Relations. He was very instrumental in helping me make the decision. My debate coach, Amberly
Mike
Reynolds.
Brown, by the way, was the first African American leprechaun in
Yes.
Notre Dame history, so also a pioneer in many ways. Yes.
Yeah. So he was very helpful in helping me make that decision. And yeah, so after I made that decision of saying, hey, we're going to do this, what we did, Maddie and I, is we met with students. So from the first week of break in November to the last week, we would have meetings every single week with different students who were working on different initiatives, part of different clubs. And really the sole mission of each of these meetings, we would open it up and say, hey, what are you passionate about at Notre Dame? And, there were students who were passionate about sustainability, other students passionate about equity, whether it's for, Native American students or Black students. And from there, we really began to get a clear picture of what the campus wanted out of student government. And we formulated our platform. The platform ended up being 11 pages. And that's kind of where we started. We started with 3 pages and kept building and kept building. And each meeting, we would walk out more passionate about something else and looking towards, creating this vision that was holistically built through, community. So it wasn't, something that we came up ourselves with. It was rather, sitting down with students and saying, help us build this. And yeah, eventually, I believe, students really resonated with what our platform was about. And, we were lucky to be elected.
No, that's fantastic. You're always so self-effacing. Everything is everybody else's credit, and you're lucky to be elected, but we know better. But tell us, what are some of the highlights of this platform? What do you hope to do over the course of this next year to serve the Notre Dame student body and to make this a better university?
Yeah, so our platform was built on 3 big things. The first thing was holistic health and well-being, which was about viewing our health as more than just physical health. So part of that is, spiritual health, part of that is sustainability, and even more so, mental health and how COVID policy pans out. From there, we worked on solidarity and equity. There's so many students on campus that sometimes can feel marginalized. and working towards building inclusivity, whether that's for Black students or Native American students here on campus,
Mhm.
and voicing those concerns and channeling what students are wanting out of student government. And then from there, the last thing that we campaigned on was this idea of bridging the gap.
Mhm.
There are so many gaps that exist between the student body and the administration, the student body and student government,
Mhm.
and the student body and the South Bend community. And so working to address those gaps where we can have student voice summits where administrators and students sit together and talk about the issues that both of them want to address. To address the fact that sometimes student governments can be very insular,
Yeah.
and who are not in student government don't know what's going on. And so us, committing to put out a newsletter saying these are the ongoing discussions we have with administrators. This is how you can keep us accountable, and helping students know what's going on. Even more so, helping students understand what student government does. I think that's also important. And then finally, uh, for the longest time, there's a sentiment that ND Notre Dame is just a bubble and people don't really go into South Bend. We want to change that whenever it's safe to go back out in South Bend and really meet with the community. One of the more innovative things that we've built is this idea of youth council, where we are looking to bring in high school students from South Bend, come in and we talk about, how can Notre Dame do better and engage with your community. I think it's something important about meeting the community where it's at and really work to, you know, a lot of what we do now in South Bend is we go to volunteer, and that is so good and it's beautiful.
Mhm.
But there's so much more that we can do in the South Bend community, whether that's supporting businesses there or really meeting with people who are doing super innovative things out there in South Bend. And so those are some of the things that the vision that we were working with, that was all built collectively with students hand in hand.
That's fantastic. It sounds to me like a very compelling vision, and one that students obviously have rallied around, and it'll be exciting to see you implement it in the coming year. Um, Not everything is perfect here at Notre Dame. There's a lot that we need to do, and if we're humble and we have some self awareness, we know that there's a lot of ways in which we have to improve. How has Notre Dame been difficult for you? What are some of the things that you would like to see us improve as a Notre Dame community, a Notre Dame family?
Yeah, yeah. So for me personally, what's the one thing that I talked about in the heat of the campaign, I guess, during a town hall. I engaged with this question of how students sometimes can feel cast aside on a daily basis. The primary mode of that is microaggressions, right? Experiencing racism in small doses just throughout your time here in Notre Dame can really tear away at your dignity and your personhood. And so realizing that issue, me myself, is at the core, something that I went through, but something that so many more people go through. And knowing that
Right.
really, really compels me to, to want to stop that and serve that. So actually, one thing that we did at Stanford Hall is we, engaged our community and said, hey, there's mindful training, which is microaggression training being offered by MSPS or the Multicultural Student Programs and Services here at Notre Dame. How about as a hall, we commit towards doing this training? And we got about 135 students out of, about 200 to take part in this training. And so little things like that can go a long way towards building a better Notre Dame community. In our platform specifically, we talk about engaging with the administration holistically. We talk about, something that might be controversial, but even sexual education, where, materials that are offered, resources that are being offered currently at the UHS, University Health Services,
Right.
uh, making those available also to student government, letting students know kind of HPV vaccinations are available, where to, get tested in South Bend if you need. So there's different things within the Notre Dame community that can be addressed, right? But it's this idea of coming together and addressing these issues. And I think it's really important that, as students, we walk side by side with administrators, because something that I've learned kind of in my time here is that, administrators want to help students and want to make Notre Dame a better place. And realizing that, and then bringing along students who want the very same thing can be very special, and so much can be done for the community that way.
Alan, you knew very little about Notre Dame when you came and you began here. It was initially a website to you. You have kind of devoured your Notre Dame experience, and you've tapped deeply into the veins of this place. Um, what is it that you've learned the most from Notre Dame, and what is it that you love most about this community and this institute?
Yeah. Biggest thing that I learned, I remember stepping onto campus for the first time and realizing that there's so many people around me. There's so many more people that I was, personally used to seeing, and each of these people has an individual story, and an individual lived reality that I may not have access to. But I've made it my goal to try and get to know every single person I run into, whether it's something as little obscure fact as in they like baseball, or something as deep as in this person is very passionate about making the world a better place in this way, right? That's when Notre Dame has really opened me to personally just this idea that people have stories and people have a path that they're walking on. And it's important that, as individuals, we do everything that we can do, to learn about that, just so in the future, we are more proactive and, knowing that people are coming from different places, and that the moment you learn that, really, it changes everything, Lou. You make friends and you learn so much about them that, you never thought, never thought could be true.
Hmm. Hmm. Now, you've landed a pretty significant internship for the summer back in Dallas. Can you tell us a little bit about that? And you've got another of a year and a half really of college, but what you're thinking about in terms of next steps?
Yeah. So I was lucky enough to be uh, given an offer for an internship this next summer at PricewaterhouseCoopers within their healthcare consulting division. And so I'm looking forward to, delving a little bit deeper into healthcare and what we can do to, better our system as a whole.
Hmm. Fantastic. So, is there any thought that you might have about elective office in the future, or what do you think? It's early, but what do you think?
it's it's never too early to say yes, and it's never too early to say no.
Yeah.
So I'll just leave it there.
Okay, fantastic. Well, how about any final thoughts that you'd like to leave our audience with today? Any parting words of wisdom?
What I would say is, the Notre Dame community has blessed me so much, and has blessed so many students here. One thing that I love about this community is this idea that I've talked a little bit about, just this idea that people have stories, and so something that I would push, the audience, find out someone's story, find out where they're coming from, what they're passionate about, go beyond the surface. It changes things, but even more so, no matter what you're going through, uh, keep moving forward. There's something on the other side, and God is walking with you. So, Lou, thank you so much for this opportunity. Really, really appreciate it, and looking forward to showing up at work on Monday. Because you're still my boss.
Yeah, we're co-workers here, and I just have to say, Ellen, you give me so much hope, and I know others that are looking in here, and certainly many others that know you. You are breaking cycles, cycles of poverty, cycles of immigration, cycles of hardship, and your strength, your energy, your spiritual depth is going to do great things for so many people in this world going forward. And I just want you to know how incredibly proud we are of you and how grateful we are for you. Thank you for stepping up to this new leadership role, which you see as a role of service primarily as student body president. And I know really good things lie ahead, and we're here to help you in any way we possibly can. So thanks again. And I want to just share with you that we'll be back. We were a little bit late today at 4 o'clock because of Allan's academic schedule comes first, and he was just getting out of class this afternoon. And so next week, we'll be back with you on Wednesday at our regular noon time. And we're going to be joined by Professor Patrick Griffin. He is the Madden Hennebree Professor of History, and he is the director of the Keogh Naughton Institute of Irish Studies. He just received a very prestigious academic fellowship. We'll talk a little bit more about that and in Irish Studies here at Notre Dame next week. Also, for those of you who have some interest, going back to that cooking theme, at 2:30 tomorrow, Eastern Standard Time, there's going to be the second episode of Fighting Irish Foodies. And we are going to be joined by Chef Josh Moran, and he is the executive chef of Legends. And he's going to be showing us how to make Guinness stew, or otherwise known as Irish stew, which will be very thematic for the upcoming week, which is St. Patrick's Day. And, Allan, any Guinness that you are to partake in, we want it to be in stew rather than in bottles, for this coming week here. But you can drink moderately, but we want to make sure that everybody's careful as we move forward during this COVID dynamic. And as we always do, with great gratitude to Our Lady, who was there for the founding of this university and who inspires and animates everything that we do today and all that we think about in the future. Let us pause and pray for her intercession. Hail Mary, full of grace, the Lord is with thee. Blessed art thou among women, and blessed is the fruit of thy womb, Jesus. Holy Mary, Mother of God, pray for us sinners, now and at the hour of our death. Amen. Thank you again, Allan. Our love and prayers for you, your father, your brother. Thank you all. Take care. God bless, and go Irish.